Okay, so we are going to go on into section 6.2 now. Factoring trinomials is what we're going to look at today. So factoring is something you've done in the past. Again, just a refresher a little bit with factoring and how you go about factoring, either using a guess and check method or an X method in order to factor them. So we've got factoring trinomials when the leading coefficient is 1, when it's not 1, and then other ways you can factor, and then so on and so forth. So we're going to factor coefficient is squared term is 1. So anytime you're factoring, essentially the reverse of FOIL is really what we are doing. So sorry, just got done with lunch and I must have spilled. Gross. Anyway, so we're going to find pairs whose product is C and so forth. So if you remember when you were back in your Algebra 2 days, we used kind of that X method to do this. And on the top was our C value, and on the bottom was our B value. I think we've already talked about this year. And then you're looking for two numbers here and here that when you multiply them together, this times this is going to give you your C value. And on the bottom, this plus this is going to give you your B value. But this is factoring trinomials. Most books and most textbooks, and I'm guessing the way they do it is they're going to show you kind of a guess and check method in order to do this. But we've kind of always used that X method to do this, and it seems to have worked really well for us. So for example, if we're going to factor the polynomial a squared plus 9a plus 20, we're going to go ahead and on the top, remember that it's ax squared plus bx, nice, plus c. Our c value goes on the top, so our c value is 20. Our b value goes on the bottom, which is 9. We need two numbers that when multiplied together are 20 that add up to 9, so 4 and 5. So then this factored is a plus 4 times a plus 5. And you're factored, and you're done with it. And this is the kind of the way that we've always done it, and we've kind of always showed you how to do it. It's the same thing that they're doing here. They're just listing all of the different ways that you can do this. And as you can see, I mean, it becomes quite difficult the way they're doing it. And that's kind of why we've always liked that X method. They get the same answers we got, but obviously it's a whole lot more complicated. And again, you can unfoil these things and you can check to make sure that they work. Okay, so let's look at another example. Our C value is 10. Our B value is -7. So we need two numbers that multiply together to be 10 and -7 with that up. Now, kind of a little bit of a hint, if your B value is positive, the sign of your two middle terms is going to be the sign that the bottom one has. Okay, so it's going to be -5 and -2. So you get B minus 5 and B minus 2. That's your factor, and you're done. Okay, so kind of always keep that in mind. If it's positive on the top, the signs of the middle two terms are going to be whatever that bottom is. Okay, and again, you could always check these. Okay. Now in this case, it's -5 and 3. Now it's negative, so if it's negative, one's going to be negative and one's going to be positive. So we need two numbers that multiply together to be 5 and whose difference is 3. Well, 1 and 5 are the only factors of 5, so it doesn't factor. So if you're just asked to factor this, at this point, there's nothing that you can put in these middle two terms, so there's nothing there. So if there's nothing there, you can't do it. So this one does not factor. It's called prime. Okay, and we're not going to worry about that type of problem. Remember, when you get something like this, we talked about in the first section, 6.1, always factor out a GCF. So in this case, the GCF is 3a. And if you take out that 3a, that gives you a squared plus 4a minus 5. Now this can be, you've got -5 and 4. So 5 and -1. 5 times -1 is -5. That gives me 4. So now you bring this 3a along for the ride, and you've got a plus 5 and a minus 1. And that's the factor of this. Okay? So just remember always, first thing you always have to do when you're factoring is take out that GCF. That has to be done. Okay, so what do you do when that leading coefficient isn't 1? So let's say we've got something like 6k squared minus 19k plus 10, where that leading coefficient isn't 1 anymore. And again, we're going to show you how they do it here after I do it our way, and you'll see our way's better, right? So on the top now, since that leading coefficient isn't 1, we're going to put a times c on the top. So my a value in this case is 6. My c value is 10. So I'm going to put a 60 here. The b value is still going to go down here on the bottom. So my b value is -19. Now here's where the trick kind of comes into play. What you're going to have here is you're still going to have two numbers that multiply together to be 60 and add together to be -19. So it's positive and negative, so they both have to be negative. So -15 and -4. But here's, oops, let's try to write that a little bit better. So -15 and 4, but here's the trick. We have to divide this now by a. So each of these has to be divided by our a value, which in this case is 6. That's because we can't just eliminate that a value, and we kind of do, and this is kind of the little trick. Now, the next trick to this is you have to reduce these fractions. So this reduces to 2/3, and this reduces to -5/2. So if we were going to write this, this would be x minus 5/2 times x plus 2/3. But you can't leave it like that. So what we do is this that denominator goes out in front of the x value, and then we subtract the numerator because it's a subtraction sign. So x minus 2/5 can be, or 5/2 can be written as 2x minus 5. This, the 3 is going to go out in front of the x plus 2. And this is our solution to this being factored. And you only have to do this when that a value is other than 1, and you have to remember to divide that out. Because remember, if you FOIL it out, you have to have what you started with. And if you look at this top part, x times x is x squared. Well, we have to have 6x squared. Well, that gives us 6x squared. So then we're good to go. So make sure you divide by that a value. So this is the x method for doing it this way. The other way to do this is by guessing and checking, and you see kind of what happens with this through guessing and checking. It can get quite lengthy. So let's look at a couple of other ones. Let's look at 10x squared plus 17x plus 3. And we're going to factor that. I'm going to take a times c on the top, which is 30. On the bottom, it's 17. So 5 and 2. But because my a value wasn't 1, I have to divide by my a value. So I'm going to divide by 10, and I'm going to reduce the fractions. So this reduces to 1/2. This reduces to 1/5. So this becomes x plus 1/2 and x plus 1/5. I can't leave it like that. So the denominator goes out in front of the x plus the numerator. The denominator goes out in front of the x plus the numerator. So there's that one factored. The next one, top, negative 30. On the bottom, 13. So it's negative, so one's negative and one's positive. So negative 2 and 15. Yep, that works. My a value is 6, so I have to divide by 6. So this is negative 1/3. This is 5/3. So I'm going to kind of skip this part right now, this x minus 1/3. So the 3 is going to go out in front of my x minus 1. There's the first one. The 3. Ooh, oops, what did I do? Something's wrong. Oh, this should be a 2. My bad. That should be a 2. This right here should be a 2. So that should be 2x plus 5. So the question is, how did I know I made a mistake? Well, when I had it, I had a 3x here and a 3x there. 3x plus 3x is 9x. I had to have 6r, xr, whatever. So I knew I made a mistake. That's why I had to go find it. Okay, so you can always should always kind of be self-checking yourself kind of as you are doing these. Okay, so that's factoring polynomials where the leading coefficient isn't 1. Okay, and they just use kind of a guess and check method by trial and error. And those work. Just not always the best way to do that. So that's kind of a quick lesson on factoring and review of factoring polynomials. Only about a 10-minute, 11-minute video to remind you how to do that. So you've got section 6.2. You've got this one. And then there's a special case one that you're going to have to watch this one as well. So there's actually 2 things to do today, 6.1 or 6.2 and 6.3, as well as both of those assignments. So watch the next video here in just a little bit. Maybe go get the first assignment done first and then watch the video. See ya.